Welcome to today's tutorials on JavaScript. Today I will be talking about objects. The last important concept needed for our website is the JavaScript object. Objects are simply containers for key value pairs, similar to what you do find in a dictionary. In a dictionary, a key is a word and a value is the meaning of the word. In a JavaScript object, a key is a name and a value can be anything, even other objects. Let's look at an example. Let full name is equal to first name is equal to Mercy, last name is equal to Habila. In our example object, which is called full name, first name and last name are keys, and Mercy and Habila are the. We can access the first name by using the dot notation. The following will show the alert Mercy. Let full name equal to first name Mercy, last name Isabella, alert full name, first name. As mentioned, objects can have other objects and function inside of them. We can send an alert in this case with let person details equal to full name, first name equal to Mercy, last name Habila, alert message function message, alert message personal details, alert message hello world. You will see this pattern used all over once we move to the next section. We have selecting HTML elements. The power of JavaScript on the web lies in its powers to select and modify the HTML code. For example, we can write a function in JavaScript that gets called when we click the submit button in our footer form. To do that, let's first select our submit button and attach a click listener function to it. When we attach a click listener to an element, it will call that listener function when the button is clicked. To be able to select our button, we will give it an ID attribute with a unique ID in our HTML file. That is for example of a JavaScript code. Input type is submit, value is send message, ID is submit button. Now that we have an ID to select, let's move to our JavaScript file and use a JavaScript function document.getQuery that query selector to select our element, just like we could select HTML elements by their names, class attribute, or IDs in CSS. We can do the same in JavaScript using this function, document.query selector. Take the selector at its parameter and return the HTML element that match the selector in the form of an object. Remember that objects are just containers for key value pair of data. We can then store this HTML element in a variable and perform all sorts of operations on it. Let submit button is equal to document query selector is equal to submit button. Notice how the ID needs to be prefaced by the pound character hash, just like when you select IDs in CSS. If it were a class name you guess it a period dot like dot. Pro tip: when in doubt, try console.log, that is variable. To log, that is to display a certain message in the Chrome developer console. The variable in JavaScript, for example, after writing the previous line, try logging the submit button variable with this one, with this console log submit button, and check the output. If you see undefined or null, it means something is incorrect. In general, try tinkering with the developers tool. It takes time, but once you get the hang of it, figuring out what went wrong, debugging becomes easier. Attaching a click listener. Now that we have the HTML element selected and stored in a JavaScript variable, let's add a click listener function to it. A click listener, as the name suggests, listen or wait for a click. We attach click listener to certain elements that are of our interest. From submit button, for example, when he said so HTML element is click, the click listener function gets called. Function is click listener, console log is button click, submit at event listener click, that is click listener. Notice that the click listener function is just an ordinary function that we pass to the event list at event listener function. Yes, passing function to other function as argument is possible and very common. Before we try to run this, we will need to make some changes to the above code to make sure it runs properly. Let's submit button is equal to document query selector. That is submit button. Function is click listener event. Event is prevent default. Console log is button click. Submit button is add event listener click. That's listener. Essentially, we are taking the event parameters supplied to our function, which contain the details of the click event like what was clicked, button properties, etc., and preventing the form from refreshing the page with event.prevent default. Save and reload. Open the developer tools, console tab, and try clicking the button. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.